The world of paranormal research is ever evolving. From teams to investigators, from science to tech and even spirituality, the old ways and the new ways. I'm Mike Morin, and come watch as I speak to some of the industry's pioneers, innovative, and most influential investigators. Andrea, thank you for coming back and having a chat with me.
Oh, it's so much my pleasure to join you, Mike. You're lovely.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been about a year since we've chatted. Um, the little interview we did got a lot of traction. It had over 38,000 views, over 100
Wow.
comments, close to 1,000 plus likes. Um, People want more questions. They really enjoyed how genuine you are, how bright you shine is what a lot of people said, your energy, your light, and all that sort of stuff. And I'd have
Thank
to
you.
agree. So before we flutter you with questions, what have you been up to this past year? What's been going? What's new in your land?
In the past year, I've made 3 documentaries. Um, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I've been,
Very broad question.
yeah, I've been to, gosh, I don't know how many places I've been. I went to Vulture City, Arizona for the Vulturecon, which was a revelation. It was beautiful, just beautiful. And I loved being in a place where cows have the right of way and the human beings have to slow way down. And I think that that's a good thing. I think one of the lessons that I took from riding through the um, the stark landscape of the Arizona desert with free range cows everywhere was that human beings should slow down a bit, and there were no roses to sniff. There was just pretty much cactus everywhere. But stop and smell the cows, I mean, just slow down and look around and take your time and plan accordingly so that you can and take it all in. And that was on the way back, the second day on my way back to the hotel. The clouds had some clouds had moved in, and they were casting shadows on the mountains, and the mountains were purple. And so I'm sitting in the front seat of the van going, oh, there they are, Purple Mountains Majesty. I knew they were out here. I just knew it. And so that was an experience, but that was also the experience that I think of out of, except for one other, which I will tell you about, but that was the experience where something happened to me, and I don't know what. I don't have any recollection of it being anything specifically. I don't know if it was the collection of the energy with the people that were present, who were just beyond wonderful. It was an incredible, eclectic group of people that had many, many gifts and much to offer, much to share. So many people that had had experiences themselves, especially extraterrestrial galactic family experiences,
Wow.
which is like, that's my bailiwick if there ever was one. Um, but I stopped I stopped doing something that was hurting me. Um, and what I was doing was allowing a part of me that is supremely angry to surface too frequently. I was in a lot of angst, and I've been extremely, extremely upset now for the bulk of the year about Ukraine. I have friends in Ukraine who I have not been able to reach since last February.
My
I
friend.
don't know if they're dead or alive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, the anger that I feel about this, the lie that was told that, no harm was meant, it was military exercises. I knew better. I knew better. I knew they weren't going to put 100,000 troops on the border of Ukraine and then just throw their hands up in the air and say, "Now we changed our mind." And I knew that this was going to be a disaster. And the most important message that I got this year was, well, let me finish the thought originally, was that I stopped letting my anger eat me alive. I stopped, and it's not that I care one whit less than I do. It's that I needed to, instead of feeling objectified by it, like taking a personal affront to it, where it was just eating me up. I had to step back a little bit and look at this whole situation objectively, with a clear realization that there is pure, unadulterated evil in the world, and that often manifests as powerful men. And I realized that this too is a part of the paradigm shift. It's not just COVID, it's not just civil rights, it's not, and I don't mean to say just, because justice is what we seek. Justice is what we seek. So it's been an accumulation of things that as I've seen, like dominoes, the shift taking place over the last few years. But this has to be a part of the raising of the awareness of humanity, that we said never again at the end of World War II, and here we are at war in Europe again.
Yep.
Except that cruise missiles are flying toward the largest nuclear reactor in all of Western Europe. We are on the precipice of disaster because of a single megalomaniac who is holding the sword of Damocles to the throat of all of humanity, not just the people of Western Europe or the people of Ukraine specifically, but all of us. And that's something that we need to have the realization that is what must change, is that, no one single person should be able to do this much damage, create this much death and destruction, unfettered, where there is no accountability, there is no stopping this except from within, and everyone within is too frightened to stop it because they're afraid for their lives, because he kills off anybody that lifts an eyebrow the wrong way at him. It's been difficult for me too, Mike, because I'm all about light and love and light and love and light and love. And I'm all about light and love until I'm not. And when I say out loud that I would sacrifice myself to be able to get close enough to him to rid the earth of the pestilence that he is, even if it cost me my life to do it, I mean that. And I know now, I am a true spiritual warrior for peace. That is not a counterintuitive concept, because there are things worth fighting for in our 3D realm. And good and evil are in constant conflict in the world in which we live. Good always triumphs. So it's not even that. I would just like it to be over sooner. But beyond that, I think that what this year has taught me is how the universe functions. It's just bizarre. I'll give you a case in point. I was in Rhode Island at the farmhouse for Halloween. And I had about an hour and a half between when the last visitors were exiting and the next group was coming in for the evening event. And I had just discovered that a childhood friend of mine was in the hospital not far from where I was. So between the groups, I hopped in the car with my friend Erin, who was there to assist me that weekend. Thank God. She was so helpful. And we drove down to the facility on the southern side of the same town that I was in, Burrillville. And I went in and I hadn't seen him in about 6 or 7 years. And he has adult onset muscular dystrophy. I would not have recognized him had I not seen his name on the door. I would not have recognized him. And I've known him since he was 9 years old and I was 12. And in fact, he is the one responsible for the beautiful watercolor artwork of the farmhouse on the cover of all 3 of my books. That's his artwork. And when we moved, he was 17. And he was so devastated that we left that he went home and he had kind of an artist studio set up in his bedroom. And he worked all summer on that beautiful piece of artwork. And then he had it professionally framed. And then he alone drove it from Rhode Island to Georgia to give it to my family as a gift. And then he stayed for 2 weeks and we had a blast. And that was when he was young and vital and strong and had his whole life ahead of him. And for the last 30 years of his life has been battling this disease that is ravaging him. And I knew when I went to see him that it might be the last time I ever see him. And so a sadness overcame me that is hard to describe. Very often when we lose people, we, promptly think of the last time that we were with them, the last thing that we said to them. Or we grieve the fact that we didn't get to see them before they were gone and never to return. And so I carried the weight of that as I left the hospital, the rehab part of the facility, and drove back to the farm with Erin. And it felt like the universe was weeping. And then I got there and walked into the summer kitchen, which is where I greeted people as they were coming into the house. And I felt a tap on my shoulder. And I turned around and I was looking into the eyes of the universe, eyes I know very, very well. And there was John Tenney standing right behind me in the summer kitchen of the farmhouse that I grew up in on Halloween in 2022. And my first conscious thought was, oh my God, there's a man that looks just like John Tenney on this earth. It never even occurred to me that he would have flown in from Detroit with our mutual friend Jessica, and driven down from Boston's Logan Airport to the farm to surprise me on Halloween.
Wow.
And I could hear the universe ringing bells of joy all I've ever wanted to do since I've known him personally. Before I met him years and years ago, and came to know him personally. All I've ever wanted to do was show him the farmhouse, to personally take him through the farmhouse, to let him feel that energy, to share those moments with him. And within an hour of my life, I went from supreme sadness to unbridled joy.
That's a lot,
And
so much emotion from.
I think that's a lesson for all of us to learn, because everything is one thing. It's this experience called life, and it is filled with tragedy, and it is filled with grief and toil and hardship and challenges and obstacles. That's how we learn our lessons. But it is also filled with love and light and pure joy. And to have all of that wrapped up into that ball all at once, like a cat, a kitten with a ball of yarn. It was like it just rolling and rolling, and my head was spinning. I'm like, oh my God, it really is John Tenney. He's really here. Oh my God. I think I said, oh my God, like 6 times, because I couldn't find any other words that praised the creator. Like that was all that came to my lips. So in a nutshell, let me say, Mike, I have had a very eventful year.
Sounds like it. Very, yes. Just from seeing on social media, you've also been doing like a lot of Paracons and the conventions and all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
that seems interesting. I have a handful of them actually. I'll be dipping down into United States for in 2023 in the Pacific Northwest, where I'll be doing some chats and showing some of our stuff and evidence and all that stuff. They're really neat. I've been to a few, but not to the scale. Like in Canada, we don't have them. We don't have a Paracon. People don't know.
Yeah, you have to go to America.
Yep, we do. Um, but how many times did you go to the Rhode Island house this past year?
I don't know. Probably 3 or 4 times. I was there for 3, 4 days over Halloween. I filmed there probably 3 times. I filmed different documentaries or TV shows, or one that just came out in the UK, one that came out in Canada. I don't know. I can't even keep track of it. I don't even try anymore. I have everything on. Remember the day you called me and I'm like, I'm putting it on my calendar. You know that if I'm putting it on my calendar, that I'm going to be there at the time that you asked me to be, and it's set in stone as though it's carved in granite. Well, that's how my calendar is, and it's sitting right over here on my mother's coffee table, staring at me. And I have my time with you today, which I cherish. And I have one more interview before Christmas. And I said no to everything else, because this is my time. Well, I have such utmost respect for you, and I consider us friends.
Thank you.
And I didn't want to say no or put you off until January. I really wanted to do this with you today, to share the season of light with all of your viewers, and to share whatever part of myself seems to resonate with others. And I appreciate having a platform and a forum to do that on, especially because it's hard to reach everybody in the world at once. You really have to hop on the interwebs to do it. You really do.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just you and one other in Toronto, I believe, next week. So all my Canada people,
Got us covered
for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So you have some questions for me from my previous interview. I don't remember what we talked about, because I go stream of consciousness. I
Absolutely.
don't use notes. I never, for any of my lectures. I did lecture. My last event of this year was lecturing at the Star Works Symposium out in Laughlin, Nevada. And I began my lecture very spontaneously. Again, just the first thing that popped into my mind when I stepped up onto that stage. And I said to them, I didn't ask for any of this. And that was the most honest thing that I could say to the hundreds of people that I couldn't even see because the lights of the stage were so bright they were blinding. But I could feel them. I could feel them.
Mhm.
And one of the stories that I told them was the one that I was about to tell you about, the most important message that I received this year. It was on February 24th. It was a very warm morning in Florida at my other home. This is my Georgia home with my mother and my sister. But I also live down in Florida, and my dad lives with me there. So I'm back and forth, frequently. And I had a sick, debilitating feeling in me that I could not overcome. And I had been battling it for months. I had been battling it since the previous November, and did my best to, you go into fake it till you make it mode,
Mhm.
especially through the holidays. If there are people that are relying upon you to make merry and be cheerful and lift everyone's spirits around you, you just go into a kind of automatic pilot, uh, especially with my mother, because my mother is as intuitive as I am. In fact, I'm certain that any gift I possess came from her. And so we were watching what was happening in Europe and on the Ukrainian border, and we were watching and cursing a lot and screaming at the TV and about a lot of different things. Um, and kind of, burning our anger together as jet fuel. But when I left here and I went back to Florida, I had an event. I started the year in Savannah and then drove from Savannah back down to Florida after that event was over. And so I'm sitting out on my terrace garden, just kind of rocking in my chair and drinking my coffee and smoking a cigarette and rocking. And I looked up into the sky and I said to our galactic family, I know what the rules are. Break them, break them. I know what they are. Break them anyway. Break them. Because if there was ever a time that humanity needs your intervention, it's right now. It's now. I just felt it coming. I knew it was coming, Mike. And I got the clearest, most succinct message that I have ever received. And I don't mean to look at you as though I know you see the pain in my eyes, because I feel it, because so many lives, innocent lives, have been destroyed for no good goddamn reason at all, other than hubris and ego. And the message came through to me loud and clear. And this is what I spoke about months later at the Star Works Symposium. It was in a voice. Usually the messages I get, they either come like through here or through downloads. I'll have to decipher it, through a download, which is not always easy. Most of my downloads, I have no idea. Absolutely no. Oh, let me put my, oh, look what I pulled out to wear for you and then forgot to put it on.
I like that scarf.
There. Isn't that beautiful? It's
Good
got peace
scarf.
signs all over it. I'm a wicked hippie. Um, And the message was this verbatim, and I heard it. And I also saw the words in my mind's eye. I saw the words as this was coming through. Whoever sent me this message wanted to make sure it did not escape me. If we are here, this planet and its people are in crisis. We are here. And I realized in that moment that the we is not just them, it's us. That we have to save ourselves from ourselves, that we have to do the right thing, that those among us who know that we are not alone in the universe are willing to step up, speak our truth, speak about peace on earth and mean it, and work toward that common goal with single-minded purpose, that we are their influence here, that they love us, and that we have to love ourselves enough to heal the woes of this world. And that means taking out the tyrants. That's what it means, taking out the tyrants. Or as my friend Regina Meredith puts it, I do her show on Gaia called Open Minds. I've done her show a number of times, and we've become friends over the years. And her lecture at Starworks was about taking the pyramid and tipping it upside down, so that the weight of all humanity, the foundation of that pyramid, will crush those who manipulate humanity at the pinnacle of the pyramid. That the weight of all of humanity and our desires for freedom and liberty and truth and light and love will crush those who are evil, those who look to perpetrate upon the rest of humanity their will, regardless of how much death and destruction ensues. So I spoke to the people that were there, and I know I was preaching to the choir. I know everybody. I told them, I'm like, sorry, mold spores or COVID, who knows? I've had it like, I don't know how many times. I just looked at them and I said, we are here. None of you stumbled into the Starworks Symposium by accident. Every single one of you was drawn to this event for a reason.
Wow.
And so now what we need to do is look at and sense and feel the power of the intellectual energy, the emotional energy, the physical energy that we in this conference room are generating, and what we are putting out to the universe, what our thought process is in terms of manifesting a future that we want to live in, for ourselves and our children and our children's children's children. What are we going to do, and how are we going to manifest peace on earth and healing and it really got to everybody. It really seemed to bring the whole frequency of the room. Like, we were just, they say, raise the frequency. Well, we have raised the frequency in recent years, but the frequency has been raised because of anxiety and fear. We're vibrating, this whole planet's vibrating at a much higher frequency than it does normally. And they have machines and technology that actually tracks this, the vibration of the planet. And it's been about fear. And we've had a lot to fear. I mean, when a novel coronavirus is unleashed on all of humanity and not a single one of us has any whit of immunity to it, and the virus itself is so intelligent that it can pick up a human being as a host, never express any symptoms in that host, but spread itself to 1,000 people that that person walks past or gets on a train with or sits in a conference room with. That's some pretty serious stuff. It's one of only 3 known viruses that live on in the host after the host has died. A very insidious virus that it is. And it's with us. People talk about, it being post-COVID. No, it's not. It's not even remotely post-COVID. 1,500 people died last week from COVID in this country. 1,500. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just last week. This virus isn't going anywhere. All we can do is arm ourselves against it by presenting, an arm. Mm-hmm. And I'm as vaxxed as it gets, and I encourage everybody to do the same because, first of all, there's no nanochip in the vaccine. It's in your smartphone. If you're afraid of the government, throw your friggin' phone away. Second of all, I think it saved my life. I have been exposed and exposed and exposed. You can't go out into the world without taking that calculated risk. So what I did was I just took every opportunity that I had to protect myself to the extent that I was able. I went to Scotland this past summer. I had just gotten over a case of COVID from a previous event that I had attended, that I picked it up again. And I had just gotten over it and finally tested negative and was ready to go to Scotland. I go off to Scotland and I pick up COVID, but I pick up the UK version of COVID, which is very well spoken, very polite, relatively mild mannered, did not ravage me. I only slept for 3 days when I got home with it and coughed and sneezed a bit, but I'm literally building my own immunity to this and its variants because of my level of exposure. But I took every precaution that I could to try to avoid it, and that's all that we can do. But nobody should be talking about, post-COVID anything. We're not. COVID will be with us the rest of our lives and beyond. They're just beginning to understand the insidious, ultra intelligent nature of what I consider to be a manufactured escapee of a virus. I don't believe that it just emerged spontaneously in a wet market in Wuhan province, China. I just don't believe that. I'm just not that gullible. Sorry. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just think that the Chinese lied to us about it. Wow, color me surprised. I want lying to stop being the norm. That's what I want. I want truth to prevail. I want justice to prevail. I have spent the bulk of this past year working diligently to get my message out, which is why I'm so appreciative of being able to join you today. And I know that, we had spoken previously about focusing on UFOs and the galactic family. But I will absolutely take some time to answer the questions that your audience, sent forth, because otherwise we'll be doing this again in a month because, we missed half of them. So go ahead and start hitting me with questions and we'll see where that takes us next.
Sounds good. Yeah, part three will be about the galactic family. Okay. All right. So since you've gone back 3 times this year, 4 times to that Rhode Island house, how many spirits are there? Are there new ones? This is an audience question. From how many spirits are there? Are there new ones, old ones? Have ones left? Have people?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I can count that high. I used to think that the spirit encounters that we have at the house are just spirits that are attached to the house. But remember, I was talking about the shift, the change.
Yes.
One of the things that has changed is that a wonderful woman named Jacqueline Nunez bought the farm, and she closed on it in May and has been shifting the energy of the farm, letting it not be so much about a revolving door of producers and cinematographers and so-called ghost hunters coming in and doing their own thing, but focusing much more on the spiritual enlightenment aspect of that farmhouse and what each and every one of us can learn by visiting it, by feeling the energy of what I've always described as a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. And I've noticed the difference. I noticed the difference right away when I got there. It's not about knee-jerk reactions and jump scares, and it's about the history of the farm. And that farm's going to be 300 years old in a few years. It's an amazing place. One of the things that I've noticed is that it's a drop-off spot for people to have experiences with spirit who are their own family members, people who they've loved and lost, that managed to find their way to the farm and come through to them. And that is a relatively new thing. To my knowledge, that's a relatively new thing. And for those of you who are watching who don't know yet about J, Jason Hawes has a daughter, Satori Hawes. She's in her early 20s now, and she and Cody Ray Despian discovered about 3 years ago this gift that's been given to them, where all they do is just interlock their arms, just touch each other, hold hands, or touch each other, and spirit comes through them. And it comes through as a tapping sound, like tapping. But you can't discern where that tapping noise is coming from. It's not from the walls, the floor, the ceiling, outside, inside. You can't tell where it's coming from. It's from the other side. And they're trying to communicate through them. And they have this very rare special gift. I never thought that I would live long enough to see it in action, but I've known them since they were little kids. And I absolutely trust them. I know they won't charge anybody to they like what if we're given this gift, why would we try to monetize it? That's ridiculous. And so they do this willingly of their own free will. And my sister April, who passed away in 2017, routinely comes through because April. She's very, very much an Aries, even on the other side, blasts her way right through. And we've had some experiences there where other people have been in their presence and their loved ones have used them as the conduit to speak with them. And it's an amazing, I won't tell their stories, it's their stories to tell. But I will tell you one thing. All these years later, we moved out of that house in 1980. All these decades and decades later, we're discovering new things about that house. And I wasn't there for this particular spiritual connection session, but I saw it on film. And Cody and Satori were standing in what was our dining room in front of the fireplace, and they got bombarded with a message that was for me. And it was about a spirit named Joseph. And everybody in the family, everybody that was present in the room, they're like, I don't remember reading about a Joseph in Annie's books. I don't remember there being a Joseph. And as they're talking to each other and trying to determine where that might have come from, the spirit comes back through and says, Nancy called me Manny. Well, in my books, was the first spirit that we see. I didn't even see him as a spirit. He looked like flesh and blood to me. I walked right past him, said, good morning, sir, and went into the kitchen. My sister Nancy saw him disappear about 5-10 minutes later, just like fade into nothingness, gone, like welcome to our netherworld moment, and she named him Manny because he was a man and she was 8 years old and she needed to call him something as a reference point with those of us that did see him. And so all those years we just referred to him as Manny. But we thought that it was probably Johnny Arnold who had passed away, obviously in the mid 1800s, I believe. And we thought that it was him. He self-identified this year, self-identified as Joseph, the one Nancy called Manny. And then when I was there at Halloween, I believe it was Halloween, it might have been the time before. I come and go a lot from the farm. Cody and Satori were there again, and Satori is super sensitive to, when they start hyper stimulating her, and she's like, okay. All right, everybody's trying to talk to me at once here. No, all right, you all want to talk. Who do you want to talk to? They spell out my name. We get Andrea, A-N-D, Andrea. Yes. Okay, you have something to tell her. All of you have something to tell her at once. Yes. How many words? 4 knocks, 4 words. And then they spelled out, we miss your family.
Oh, that's wow. Wow.
Yeah. And we have all of it on tape. It's all filmed.
That's amazing.
I know. And that so many people are having experiences with their own loved ones that have nothing to do with the farm. But it's something about the farm. It's like an open portal. It's like a vortex where they can just kind of slide in, leave their message, slide out. It's just, we're just learning. I mean, this place should be like a living museum of the dead. It is just that remarkable. I hope that everyone, now that it's open for tours and you can go investigate, and I hope everybody makes their way to the farmhouse. Let it be at the top of a million bucket lists, because it literally changes you going to that house and experiencing it. You never think or feel about anything the same way again.
It's 100% on my bucket list. I need to experience that place. But yeah, so.
Well, I hope I answered the question. I go off on tangents. It's what I do.
You did. You nailed it. It's a good one. Now, the next question I have is from someone. You're probably a really good person to answer this based on what happened in the past, like with the house and your experiences. The latest craze on TV is everything's a demon, everything's dark, everything's gonna possess you. Don't go there because the demon will get you from the portals of the demonic lake of fire.
Superstitious nonsense.
Yeah. So the question is, demons on TV. That's basically all they are, in my opinion. I've been doing the ghost hunting thing since probably 98, 97. And I've never, knock on wood, I've never experienced one. I've experienced a lot of upset or cranky spirits or poltergeist activity, but I've never experienced, nor would I want to experience, the D word per se. Now, when you hear people walking through that house in particular, like in modern day, saying demons, they're here, they're everywhere, like what goes through your head with that stuff from living through the darker aspect of the paranormal.
If I owned it, I would tell them to pack up their stuff and get out.
Right.
I would. So you're bringing energy into this house that does not belong here, does not reside here. You're bringing in your own negative energy into this house to try to stir up something negative. Pack your bags and go.
Yeah.
You know, I would, which is probably why it's a good thing that I don't own the house, because I would be militant in terms of my attitude about that, you know. And I'm not, I mean, it's like in these days in the paranormal, every other person's a demonologist, every other person's a walking, living, breathing experts on angels and demons. First of all, there's no such thing as an expert in the paranormal, period, over, out. There is no such thing.
We're always learning.
You know, and I'm not saying there aren't people that have had, you know, a depth of experiences over their lives. That's probably the closest, like John Zaffis, for instance. Yep. You know, Johnny's been at this for the better part of 50 years. Mm-hmm. He's had experiences that I wouldn't want to get anywhere near. But even he will tell you that even though there is pure evil in the world, it exists. If you have any question in your mind about that, please feel free to turn on the news. You can see multiple manifestations of evil all around you at all times. But he'll even tell you the rarest thing in the world is to encounter. I never encountered a demon. I don't know what a demon is. I don't know if demons exist. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't even necessarily believe. I don't know what to believe about exorcism. I don't know. You know, I don't know. But I do know that the spirit activity in the farmhouse, and yes, there's occasionally somebody cranky. You know, if you're cranky in life, chances are really good you're going to be cranky in afterlife. I don't think that our characters or our personalities really change very much, if at all, when we make that transition. But which is why, if you want to have a live happily ever after life, you'd better get your act together in this one.
I fully agree with that.
You know, I mean, really, just be kind, be good, be pure of heart, be loving to all you encounter, be generous of spirit, you know, keep Christmas in your heart year round. You know, I mean, it's not a difficult way to live. It's actually the easiest way to live.
Less drama.
Is, you know, just be good.
Yeah.
Be good. You know, or any iteration you choose of the golden rule. My favorite is be do unto others as though you are the others, because you are the others to someone else. Mm-hmm. You know, it's, we need to heal our divisions and come to understanding that we're each operating, if not equidistantly, from some perspective within the unified field of oneness. You know, we are one human race. We share this one earth that we're decimating out of selfishness. And, you know, we have big things to solve, big issues to solve. And we are all here to help this transition of humanity into a spiritual ascension, to understand who we are, why we're here, and where we come from. And that encapsulates, I believe, the entire era in which we are living, and that each one of us is experiencing in this lifetime, and what we can do to make sure that when we make our transition, that we leave this world better than we found it. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, that's the purpose of life.
Yeah, no.
To touch every soul, to hug every neck, to kiss every cheek, to just fill the world with light and love and laughter at every opportunity. And when you live with that intention, when you have the best of intention for not only yourself and your immediate family and friends, but for all human beings, for all the creatures that inhabit this earth, then you're living well and living in a right-minded, helpful way where you're part of the solution instead of the problem.
Power of positivity always wins, right?
Yep, it does.
Yep. And now, our next question from one of our watchers was, who was the Scottish spirit and what was your first interaction?
The Scottish spirit at the
Yep.
farmhouse.
Yep.
I didn't interact with her.
Okay.
My mother did. And I think she was, and I'm not even sure she was Scottish. She had a kind of a brogue. I heard her, but I never saw her. And she was the one that said the incantation to my mother. "'Twas mistress once afore ye came, and mistress here will be anon." And she threatened her, told her basically, get out. And said, if I can't get you out one way, I'll get you out another way. And we don't know who it was. We're still working on that. And in fact, working on that far more diligently now that we have access to Cody and Satori.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we do sessions at the farmhouse, we're starting to hone our questions. At first, it's kind of a mind-blowing thing. At first, it's like, is this really happening? Is this happening? Like, how can this even be real? But after that sensation wears off, you start to collect your thoughts again in a more cohesive way and start asking questions that don't need a long explanation, kind of yes or no, or maybe, or, questions. We have asked them if they can tell us where they are, and they say no. And that's okay. I don't think that we necessarily need to know everything. I think it's pretty abundantly obvious that there is something beyond our mortal existence. Otherwise, ghosts would not exist, and ghosts exist.
Absolutely.
So, there you've got that.
Yep.
And for me, it's not a belief system. It's, not about having faith in the afterlife or anything like that. I know that there is something beyond our mortal existence. I know, and it's intelligent and it's communicative. And it wants to communicate with us and has things to teach us, mostly that they exist. I've always said, to me, it doesn't even matter who they were in life. I know it matters to them. It doesn't matter to me who they were. That they still are is a freaking miracle. Imagine living in a world where we were all surrounded by spirits of our loved ones past and our ancestors and those watching over us, and never knew it. That we never knew it. We never had any kind of interaction or, saw something out of the corner of our eye that could only be explained one way. I'm so grateful to them. And, one of my pet peeves, even though, I'm not here to convince anyone of anything, coerce anyone about anything. Everybody's free to do their own thing, their own way. That's fine. But I would never, ever try to even attempt to cross a spirit. I have a great deal. I'm so grateful for them being here. And I figure it's their prerogative. If they want to cross, then they can. And they don't require us to do it for them. But there are some people that, will say, well, they're suffering here. They're suffering. We have to help them cross. And, that's their opinion and their perspective. It's not mine. I want to learn as much from them as I possibly can. And if they stayed for a reason. And maybe the communication that I'm able to have with them is that reason.
I fully
I
agree
don't
with you.
know.
I am totally. I'm on. It's not our business to forcefully cross spirits over.
Well, that's it. I'm putting your name on Team Andrea.
There we go.
You're on my team. That's it.
Yep. No,
Yep.
but it's a respect thing. To whom I to waltz into a house and be like, Edna, you're no longer allowed here. You must see the light right now. It's not up to me to say that. Like,
How presumptuous of us to even
it blows
think
my
that
mind.
that's our role.
Yeah, yeah, and I just, and a lot of people do that, or they try to exercise the spirits, and it looks good on TV, I guess, right?
We know, okay, here's the most important thing that I'm going to say on your show today. One of the most important. We know nothing compared with what there is to know. We know nothing. We are babes lost in the woods, trying to find our way home in the dark. That's how little we know. And I mean all of us, compared with what there is to know. We live in a multi-dimensional universe. We just reside in a three-dimensional realm here on this planet right now, but we're from elsewhere. When I pray, I say, "Oh, great spirit." That's my Cherokee. That's how they begin. "Oh, great spirit." Dear God, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I mean, when I go to travel someplace, I have this prayer that I do. "Oh, great spirit. Oh, dear God, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, all the saints, all the sinners, all the angels, all the demons, all the incorruptibles, all the galactic family, everybody get in the car. We're going for a ride." I call in everyone. I want my protectors with me. I don't care what their post-it note labels are. If they have, lived and died and or are the sentient prescient beings that are circumnavigating this globe in numbers that none of us can even comprehend. Everybody get in the car. We're going for a ride.
It's your
Because I have to get from point A to point B safely, and I refuse to die as undignified a death as it would be for me in a car crash with an 18-wheeler. I just don't want the blood, the guts, the gore, no, and no pain and no nothing. I want to die in my sleep of old age. That's what I want. Or I would just like to get tagged for pickup and never be found. And I would be perfectly fine with that as long as my dinky dog can come with me for the ride. And she's only 3 and Chihuahuas can live till like 20. So I'm just hoping that I've got her with me for the rest of my life.
That was actually my next question, was how's Peanut?
Peanut Buttercup, the princess. Peanut Buttercup. Come here. Do you want to come see Uncle Mike?
We have an appearance.
Do you want to? Come here. Get over here. Come here. Get over here. Oh my God. Oh no, we have the rolling over now. We have the dead weight on the back. Get over here. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. Oh, picked her up the wrong way. Now she's good. Oh, now she just had a little bit of a squeaky noise, toy sound. Don't lick the lip lard off, honey. I need it because I'm doing the show. You see the show, we're doing it. There's your Uncle Mike right there. And all you have to do is say, "Mr. DeMille, I am ready for my close-up. I am ready for my close-up."
Yeah, that
She's
was actually
my service dog.
right.
Of course, I don't tell anybody that I live in service to her. It's not the other way around. I am her lady in waiting. You got the boo-boo under the arm. I know, and mommy touched it, and I'm so sorry. This is the center of my universe in case anyone has a question. If anybody's feeling lonely, if anybody's feeling like they need more love in their lives, go rescue an animal. Go rescue a dog or a cat or an iguana, for God's sake.
I agree.
Whatever will bring you joy and happiness in your life, go get one of these.
I support the animal rescuing because that's what I do for a living.
There you go. There's my baby. There's my sweet baby. There she is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So now we have the peanut update. That was very important. We had about 5 people.
It was very
That.
important.
Yep. um, can you?
That's my mother yelling in the background, Mike. Hold on just a minute.
Sure.
Getting there, Mom. Don't you worry about a thing. And don't worry. Nobody can even see you. I'm blocking the door. You're good. Okay. Mom says hi.
Hi back.
I'm home for the holidays.
That's awesome. I get, wow, Christmas is basically here, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But one of our listeners, viewers wanted you to explain, because they've read a lot of it, they've seen the reenactments on TV and that, but they want to hear, I guess, from you. Um, your first, you roll up to the Rhode Island house, your first walkthrough, because I remember you said, I think this was on Spaced Out Radio, about you saw somebody actually sitting there right when you rolled up and thought it was someone. They just want to know your first encounter.
When I was writing the books, I asked every member of my family if they had any recollection of seeing anything weird. The first time that we went. Now, the first day that we moved in, four of us, myself, my sister Nancy, Christine, and Cindy, all saw the apparition that Nancy named Manny. But when I was, I was still 11. Mom had found the farm, told Dad that she had emptied the family bank account to put earnest money down on it. His head blew off his shoulders. It was messy. She's like, well, you have to look at it. You know, if you don't want it, I'll find a way to get the check back, but you have to at least look at it. And so the first time that we all piled into the car and we went to the farm together, I just thought it was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. No one in the family had any recollection of feeling anything strange, seeing anything strange, encountering anything that was different than, our previous reality. It wasn't until we actually moved in where that shift occurred, and it occurred immediately. And what we learned in a very short amount of time was that basically we were looking at our old reality with new eyes, that we were living in a much, much older house than what we had come from, which was a little Cape Cod in Cumberland, Rhode Island, into this sprawling colonial, for lack of a better word, edifice. I mean, it's just a huge house, massive sprawling farmhouse, 3 times the size of the house that we were living in. And it had a history and it had an energy attached to it. But nobody remembers, and we probably went at least 5 or 6 times that we went to spend time with Mr. Kenyon at the farm before we actually owned it. Because my mom found it in June of 1970, and my parents didn't close on the property until the beginning of December of 1970. So I had turned 12 that October. So when we moved in January, I was 12. My youngest sister was 5.
Okay.
But I knew there was something different about this place. And I'll tell you how I knew, Mike. I felt like I knew the house and the town. In fact, as we were driving, my mother reminded me, as I was writing the books, about me. I was sitting in the back seat of our old Bonneville. We called it the Catholic Mobile, room for 7, luggage, and the family dog. And as we were driving through Harrisville, through the village, I asked my mother if we had ever been there before. And my father said no, he didn't think so. But I knew where every single thing in that town was. I knew where the theater was. I knew where the town hall was. I knew where the library was. I knew about the waterfall and the big mansion up on the hill. And I just had a sense of belonging in Harrisville that I couldn't explain and that I had never felt before. I had never been to a place before that felt familiar to me like that. And then when we got to the farm, I didn't want to leave. I mean, I was like, okay, well, we're home. Now we're home. Now we're home. And it, took another 6 months before we were actually home. Surveys had to be done. There was lots and lots and lots to do. It was kind of like making a movie, closing on a piece of property that big. There's 1,000 things you have to do. And everything has to fall directly in place, like a cosmic puzzle where the three-dimensional pieces fall to earth and land exactly where they have to be to complete the picture. That's the puzzle. I remember feeling a sense of comfort being there. And it wasn't just because it was a beautiful summer day the first time we went. It wasn't that. It was, there were apple blossoms still on the tree, the big apple tree to the side of what was the woodshed. It had been a very cold winter the year before. The apples bloomed later than usual that spring. And in fact, there had been an early frost that had killed off a lot of the blossoms, and they were reblooming because the warmth had finally come. And I just remember looking at that place like I knew every stone in the stone wall personally, like I knew every splinter on the barn floor, like I didn't need to be shown around to see anything. I was home. And it was very strange too, because the day that we moved out 10 years later in June of 1980, I told my mother about an incident that had occurred where I had actually seen the face of a spirit in the house. And I was 21 when we moved out, 12 when we moved in, 21 when we moved out. And I described the spirit that I saw to my mother. And she was like a mirror image of a reflection of me at this age. Only she had lots and lots of long gray hair and had it wound up. I've got plenty of hair, but not so long that I can wind it in a bun. But she looked just like me. I mean, it was like a mirror image reflection of me as an old woman. Um, and she smiled at me, and it was like, what? It was a WTF moment. I'll spare you, and I won't go into it, but it was because the jury for me was out on the notion of reincarnation, and I've always felt like such a misfit on the planet anyway, that I just couldn't believe that I had ever been here before. That didn't make any rational sense to me, because if I had been, I would feel more comfortable on Earth than I do, and I don't. But I told my mother what I saw that day, and everybody else in the family saw her that day when I was 17, just about to turn 18, on a visit home. It's the chapter called Welcome Home in volume 2, I think. Gosh, it's been so long since I wrote the books, I can't even remember. That's pathetic. And my mom turned to me and she looked at me and she said, I always knew we bought this house for you.
Wow. That's a good story.
I still don't know what to make of it. And that's one thing that your viewers and your listeners must know about me by now. If I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. And I think that that's the only logical, reasonable, and truthful answer. There's just too many people that work in this field that'll, make stuff up as they go along to satisfy what they, deem to be a question where, they're the white hot spotlight is on them and they feel like they've, got to come up with something that's profound or significant or, no, I'll tell you right out. I don't know. I still don't know. I mean, I know that spirits can throw different images. I know that there's the possibility that that happened, maybe in that moment to make me feel more comfortable. I don't know. And I might never know the answer to that, or I might find out immediately upon my death.
Yeah, no. It's funny you mentioned this about feeling like when you move there, you're at home before you move there.
Mhm.
There's a town that I often investigate at least once a year, I've been going there since about 2015. But previous to that, it was always a family trip destination. I brought my daughter there, brought lots of people. And whenever I go there, I'm like, I'm home. It's this old 1800s ghost town, and I feel like I belong there. And when I leave, I get like anxiety. I shouldn't be leaving. It's a bizarre feeling. But final question for you. And this,
Isn't it amazing the connections that we have, though? Isn't it?
I agree. I
Yeah,
fully agree.
amazing.
And like going back to that, what I was just saying is I can't explain it. I don't know how. I don't know why. When I walk through this town, it looks like Tombstone or Deadwood. That's a
Uh
capital.
huh. Kind of
And
like Vulture City did to me, which was an epiphany.
yeah,
It was for a ghost town, a dead town. It was alive with activity.
and that's what I was just about to say. Every time I walk down the strip, all of these 1800s buildings, it's like I can see the people, feel the people, see the emotions, like the pubs, the hotels, the dancing places, just everywhere. It's just like, wow, I must have lived here once. So, all right, Andrea, we got one more question for you. This one's from
Okay.
me, actually.
Okay.
So, basically, I'm asking you this question as an investigator, because your experiences at the Rhode Island house and then how you go back there often to do investigations, appearances, and all that sorts of stuff. Um, and whenever you said before, when you go back to these places, you have similar experiences with the spirits. They often know that it's you coming back. They know when you're coming back.
Yeah.
Now, there's a house that I investigate, and it's about 3 hours from where I live. It's in the interior of British Columbia. And the first year I investigated there, I was kind of probably a little chest puffed, a little dude, bro, come at me, right? I'm not
Yeah.
accountable. We all went through that, right? And I was doing an EVP session, and I got choked. I got choked by a spirit. I felt it touch my throat.
Wow. Wow.
Now, like with my job, like my day job, I have to be switched on and kind of a type A personality at all times and control my surroundings and whatnot. But
Mhm.
I couldn't bat it away, and it just kept squeezing and squeezing. So basically, I tucked tail and ran out of there, and got sick in the flower garden outside. Came back in the house with our team sensitive at the time, and all we heard was this giant growl, kind of like the house was shaking. Now, fast forward to the next year, we go back. Um, Something bats my arm away when we were up in the main hallway. And then the other investigator turned on me, got influenced and turned on me verbally. And then every year we go there with, say, a new investigator, they turn on me or they get aggressive or have words with me and then snap out of it.
Yeah, there's a negative energy that is probably so pervasive there that people who are empathetic or intuitive or sensitive are being infiltrated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always necessarily an attachment. An attachment really means a spirit that wants to live vicariously through you to the extent that they are able. And so they'll kind of latch onto you like a monkey on your back, and you have to shoo them off and, go back to where you came from. And it takes some interaction to do that. But some people just get infused with the energy of the place. When I go back to the farm, I'm like, oh God, oh, I'm home. Oh, it's like being submerged in warm, drawn butter. It is the most comforting, wonderful feeling. And I don't understand why anyone would pick up anything other than that at the farm, but I think that a lot of times, we come in with our own intentions, we come in with our own abilities, our own perceptions, our own expectations, which is a very important part of this. As you well know, you are extremely well versed in this, and you know that interaction is a very big part of the experience. What are you bringing to the table? What is your intention in terms of interaction with spirits? Do you want to have, the bejesus scared out of you? Or do you want to learn something that could ultimately change the way you think about everything? Do you want to feel the emotions of the spirits? Or do you want to keep them at bay and just, visibly witness a manifestation? And each and every one of us comes with a different expectation, a different mindset. And so that feeds into the narrative as a whole. Think of like if you do an investigation one night and you've got 10 team members, each one of you is a chapter in that book.
Yep.
Each one of you brings your own raw, visceral response to the experience that you are having. And each one of those experiences can be entirely different. Or I have been in groups where everyone had exactly, precisely the same experience, where everyone picked up a disembodied voice on their recorder simultaneously. And when that happens, that's a very powerful spirit that isn't just whispering at one or the other, is letting everyone, making its presence known with everyone in the room. Which is what happened the night that my mother was attacked, the night of the seance. Whatever it was, as evil as it was, as strong as it was. And I don't call it a demon. I don't know if it's a demon. I didn't see anything. I don't know. But it attacked my mother, and it made its presence known to everybody in that household simultaneously. I can tell you, it was strong enough to have killed her if it wanted to.
Wow.
It didn't want to kill her.
No.
It wanted to expose itself to everyone that was there, particularly Ed and Lorraine Warren. And what did that do? That validated for them their belief system that everything is angels and demons, and as staunch Roman Catholics, they have a very rigid, very well-defined belief system that incorporates these images. And so I don't know what it was that attacked my mother. All I know is that it had all the power that it could possibly have needed to kill her. It didn't kill her. What it did was it educated every single person that was present in that house that night, educated us with its presence on earth. I never want to see anything like that again for as long as I live. I use my light as Teflon. I do. I mean, I really do believe if you shine so brightly in this world that the dark has no capacity to permeate that light, it can function merely as a backdrop for it, but it cannot ever overtake it. That's how I live.
Yeah.
Even when I'm a miserable bitch. That's how I live. Sorry, I shouldn't swear on your
No,
show
you
until I
do.
ask you if it's
Listen,
okay to swear on your show. Is it okay to swear on your show?
fuck yeah. Yeah. No.
I
No.
knew I loved you.
Yeah.
I knew I loved you. That is, I pre-loved you before I actually loved you from talking on the phone. And Spaced Out, which Spaced Out was great. That was one of my favorite interviews I ever did.
Dave loves having
Um,
you. Yeah.
yeah, Spaced Out Radio rocks the netherworld.
Absolutely.
But it's hard. We cannot determine what the intentions of the spirits are. I tell everybody, in terms of spirit and in terms of the galactic family, the ball is always in their court.
They always have the
Always.
control. Yep.
They call the shots. They decide who they're going to interact with or integrate with, who they're going to attach to, who they're going to communicate with, what they're going to say, if they're going to do it with an object, or if they're going to do it with a download, or if they're going to do it third eye, if they're going to do it by a whisper in your ear while you're, falling off to sleep. And it's based on, I think, how much energy that they're able to manifest in any given environment. Whereas the galactic family are sentient, prescient, very alive beings, some of which exist in an alternate state, that don't even require bodies as vessels anymore. Light beings, I'm sure you've heard that phrase. And when I come back and do your next show, we're going to focus all of our energy and our attention on our galactic family, because now is the time.
You're going to take
now
out.
Now is the time. The time is now. We are here.
All right.
That includes you too.
Okay. I'm down.
It does. So I'll come back in sometime in January when it's, relatively quiet. Put this one out and, see what kind of feedback you get, any other questions. And we'll just, continue our conversation, Mike, because it's imperative that we do so.
I agree.
It's imperative that we get this information, these messages out into, the larger population. We can heal the world one soul at a time, one person at a time. But can we do it in time to save the world?
That's a good cliffhanger.
We need to talk to more than one at a time. Which is why I made 3 movies this year, and 2 more in the works. Still, 2 more still in the editing room. I used the COVID pandemic to just burgeon in terms of getting the message of the afterlife and the messages that I think that humanity needs in order for us to rise above the conditions that we create, so that we can create new conditions in a more clear-sighted, cohesive way. And as I describe it, as we, kind of go into, we're making that transit from 3-dimension to 5-dimension. The spirit realm is 4th dimension, or at least that's what the, quantum physicists say. I don't know. I'm not one of them. I love what they do. I just don't do that. I am an experiencer. I am a contactee. And so I speak my truth, regardless of how much trouble it gets me into. I don't care. Nope. I'm not here for everybody on the whole planet. Not everybody's ready for me. I don't, my friend, Louise Hay, years and years ago, wrote a wonderful book called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. And it's, that's kind of been my, my mantra for forever, because you can't please everybody all the time. And, I don't want to scare anyone, because that's counterintuitive to what I do, is to dispel the fear. As Madame Curie wrote, now is the time to understand more so we may fear less.
That's a good one to go by. That's a good
Yeah.
closer for us.
Yes, it is. And I love you, sweetheart, and I thank you, and I wish you and your viewers the most Merry Christmas, the happiest holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Ramadan, happy Festivus for the rest of us. You know, whatever you celebrate at this time of the year, celebrate in earnest, and let's go forward into 2023 with the very best of intentions to envision the world and make it what we envision it to be, and each put our heart and our soul into that process. And if we do that, we will have helped to heal the world. So go forth unencumbered and be the light you seek.
Thank you very much. And I fully agree. And Merry Christmas to you two and your family.
Thank you so much. I will pass your sentiments along in kind.
Thank you.